Hi everyone, this is Anisa Ginjo Art Channel, and today we are going to talk about one of my artworks. It is going to be a video on story behind art based on one of my projects, and today we are going to talk about my project, which is Inner Peace, which I created this year. And I'm going to talk about how I created it, what emotions I had, and some of tips and tricks on creating this project. The Inner Peace project is one of my two emotional projects for this year, and I'm not planning to make any other emotional projects because I'm investing too much of my personal emotions and inner resource of energy on creating such projects. I didn't plan from the very beginning to make such piece of art, such project. I wanted to create only another character for my portfolio, and it was going to be a character according to the full game dev pipeline from high poly to texturing and to rendering. And the concept which I chose for such character was the concept of Ukrainian concept artist, which is Evgeny Motsak. Here is the concept, and I can tell you that I wanted to make this character for about several years, but every time when I was looking at this concept, I thought that I don't have enough skills to create such a character. But this spring I felt like I have enough expertise to create such a character, and I started making him. When I finished the high poly version, I realized that I want to make something more. Definitely I'm going to finish this character according to the full game dev pipeline later, maybe in the early next year, but at that time I wanted to create something emotional, something more meaningful than comparing to what I was creating before. For the project Inner Peace, the way it looks right now, I didn't have any concepts, only for this and that, like just for the character I had the concept, but for the girl and for the whole vibe which you feel from this concept, it was completely my imagination and completely what I felt. This year we faced a lot of difficulties. I think the whole world faced a lot of difficulties, same as I did. I experienced layoffs 3 times this year and like immigration issues and all this thing. And during this year, I was trying to find like kind of this inner peace, this island of peace and security where each of us can stay at least for a certain period of time just to calm down and to relax. By the way, I want to remind you that I have recorded a workshop on the job search for 3D artist, and you can find the link in the description to this video. In this workshop, I think I gathered everything, all the tools, all the websites, all my knowledge on looking for the job, because actually I'm pretty good at looking for the job. For me, it doesn't take like more than 2 weeks to find a new job. So I wanted to share it with everyone that if you follow the certain strategy, you will always manage to win this game to find a job. So if you want to know, I've recorded like 3 long videos and a couple of documents with all the guidance which I use when I look for like a new job. So if you're interested, you can find the link on my ArtStation and you can acquire this workshop if you're interested in productive search for a job in game dev and like in 3D in general. Returning to the project, I want to say a couple of words about the idea behind this project, which I actually described in the description on my ArtStation, but I want to like say it with my voice, with my words, that when you're looking for the inner peace, like each of us has like 2 parts of ourselves. We have like masculine part, which always strives for a lot of achievements, for like better life or whatever you want, and we have like a feminine part which always wants to stay safe, wants to calm down, wants to surround yourself with warmth and calmness and to create a peace around. And usually these our inner parts, they go in conflict with each other and it aggravates all our life even more. And I personally feel like I can find the inner peace when these 2 parts of my of my soul, of my nature, they are not in a conflict when they can deal with each other, like going the same way. You need to solve the conflicts which you have inside, and only then you can solve the conflicts which you have outside in the outer world. When I was creating this and that man, the biggest challenges for me was creating this semi-realistic detailization of this dried skin and the metal. As you know, I am a stylized character artist, and I don't have a lot of experience in creating realistic characters, and I didn't want to make the project completely in realism, so I was somehow combining my skill in stylized detailing with realistic examples of how everything should be detailed. And in the end, what we have right now, I'm actually very proud of how it looks like, because I think it is exactly what I wanted this and that man to look like. And by the way, during my IBC lectures, I was talking about creating the semi-realistic cracks in metal. And if you're interested even in more practical tips and tricks, you can watch my lecture at IBC, which is a link you can find again, as usually in the description. Everything can be found in the description. When I finished with the high poly of the undead man, and I decided to create like the full personal project with emotional project, it was time when I moved to Rome. And when you live in Rome, everywhere when you go out, you see the works of old masters like Bernini, Michelangelo, Raphael, and others. And I'm so much deeply inspired by their works. I saw their works in the galleries, I saw their works outside. So what I want to say, that what I see here in Rome very much influences my inner sense of beauty, my vision of beauty, and that's why I was deeply inspired by the works of old masters. And I wanted, of course, not to create something on their level, because I think it's impossible, but to create something similar, inspired by their works. And I think from this my work, it is very clearly seen by which artworks I was inspired. If you can guess by which works I was inspired, write it in the comments to this video. I usually tend to think that the best works we can create when you are like in a most stable emotional condition, but I think this is more about your working projects and works. If you're talking about emotional, I really wish I hadn't experienced all those difficulties of immigration and of life and all the rest this year, but all the difficulties which I had were fully converted into art. And I think this is like the only plus of going through all the difficulties which I had this year. So returning to the practical part of this video, talking about some tips and maybe secrets which I used for this project. And one more time, as I said in all my videos, I don't use any like secret custom brushes which can create something. Instead of, I sculpt everything with default standard brushes from ZBrush, plus sometimes I use Orb Craig's brush, which also can help me, but it's the only brushes which I use in that brush. All the folds I sculpt with hands. However, this time I tried the dynamics tools in that brush for making semi-realistic folds for the undead, and they worked out the way I wanted. I've even recorded a reel for my Instagram with tips on it. This project was fully sculpted in that brush, rendered in Marmoset. I decided to render it in Marmoset, not in ZBrush, because I wanted to avoid this ZBrush render, because it's always seen when it's rendered in ZBrush, despite I know how to render everything in that brush and receive like very high quality. But this time I just don't want it to have this association. I didn't want people to pay attention to where it was rendered, so I wanted to make something, I don't know, not ZBrush looking. That's why it was rendered in Marmoset. It is the only high poly. I stopped when I finished that high poly and I rendered. It's not really textured. I poly painted it a little bit, but again, it took about like 15 minutes, not too much, just somewhere where I wanted to make some of the materials darker, some of them I wanted to make lighter. And in the marmoset, it's just standard material with like slight settings in roughness and metalness, and also I added SSS to the material, and mainly this is it. When I was creating the girl for this project, I didn't sculpt her from scratch because it would take like a lot of time, and when you create emotional project, you just don't want everything to last forever, because it takes so much of your resources and so much energy that you don't feel like you want to make it for years, for long months. Otherwise, you will just be very much burnt out. It's not because you align, you're connected to this project a lot, and that really like can make you burn out. So for the girl, I used already existing girl, and I reused the girl which I created for the cyberpunk girl, one of my most famous project. I even reused the hair. Of course, I changed the hair, I changed the pose, I changed everything, and then on top of it I applied the dress. So I used her only like as base mesh, like nothing more. I posed both of the characters already in that brush because I always pose everything in that brush, and when they were posed, I created the dress, I sculpted the folds, and I fixed the hair the way it is looking right now on the render. And again, one more time, I want to say that very often I am asked whether I'm using Marvelous Designer to create folds, and no, all the folds were sculpted in that brush. I don't use Marvelous Designer. I don't like the way it looks. Maybe that because I have lack of knowledge in Marvelous Designer, but all the folds which you see in this project, as usually, I sculpted with hands. Actually, when I was making it, I was thinking about that I might have the biggest difficulties exactly with folds, because your dress is not really standard and the folds are not really standard. But eventually I sculpted these folds, I think, in 1 hour. And I think the most difficulty was with the pose of like the whole composition. I looked through a lot of variants of photos from photographers, from other artists' works to find the pose, because something what looks nice on 2D is not looking nice in 3D. And well, I spent I think about several days on fixing the pose, on looking for right angles and all this like peculiarities, small details, because I was worried a lot about how the silhouette is going to look like. And again, every time when we create something, we need to worry a lot about the silhouette, because the silhouette is the most important thing when we are creating whatever we are creating. It doesn't matter if it is like a personal project or it's your commercial project or whatever. Silhouette is one of the most important things here. Unfortunately, I didn't record the process of creating this project, but like a lot of things were done during my live streams at Brush Live at the Maxon ZBrush channel. So if you want to like look behind the scenes, you can find my streams where I was creating this project and see there how I was working on it. And the most difficult part in this project was creating this and that man, because well, very often, just almost often, I create some very nice cute characters at work and even from personal projects. So to create something like him, well, with this mix of style from Dark Souls, from something realistic and to combine it in some realistic style was like the biggest challenge for me. And I don't know, I spent really a lot of time on detailing everything and checking that the details are looking nice. I wiped a lot of details because like from the distance they were looking as a mess, and that's not what I wanted to have for this project. So yeah, I think this and that character was like the most difficult part. And of course, another difficult part was like emotional part of this project. And by the time I was finishing the project, I was just thinking that thanks God, I can finish it and forget about it. And I can tell you like some of my, there is a thing which I noticed about such projects, that of course you start creating them when you have this a lot of emotions and it's difficult for you to deal with all of them. The moment you start making an art out of your emotions, you kind of convert these unproductive emotions into something productive, and it feels like you are expressing them in a very safe way. And I think that's important, to find a way how you can express safely the emotions which you feel in order not to let them burn you from the inside. So by the time when I finished this project, I was like emotionally empty, and I felt like to create this kind of project was like the best idea and the best way to express everything what I felt. And I really wish for everyone who is watching this video and who maybe will watch it in future to find the safe way to express your feelings. And art, I think, is the best area where you can put your emotions, and this is the way, first of all, how you get rid of them, and the second, you can speak to the world without saying a single word. And this is what I like about art, that when we are creating art, you can speak to the world without saying a single word. And I think it is very important to, when you're creating not a commercial art, not something for a portfolio, but something emotional, is to make it this way that everyone who is looking at your art can find something for himself what echoes in your heart. And then such project is like, I think, really cool. You may ask me, do I recommend to create some emotional projects for your portfolios? It's to my mind, it's like very doubtful question, because I personally think about my portfolio as a marketing tool which helps me to find job. And if you're looking for the job in game dev, just finished sculpts is not enough for you to find a job. If you want to find a job for like 3D printing where you need only sculpting, that of course like it's a great idea to show how you can create different projects, especially emotional, because I think all these toys which we buy, which we like, which we do, they're all emotional. And remembering the time when I was working for the Riot Games merch, creating this mini chivis, it was like very important exactly to show the emotion. When we are talking just about your portfolio in the game dev, it's only my point of view, but I think it's better to create just full pipeline characters, not like that so much emotional. But anyway, it's a good practice to learn how to express yourself and to create some nice piece of arts, which maybe can be one of the best in your life. I also created this year like another emotional project, and I think I'm done for this year. And like for next year, I will be concentrated mostly on my portfolio as on my marketing tool, as my sales tool, and I plan to create just the full pipeline characters in semi-realistic style, not in realistic, and in that style which I am creating right now, the characters. One more thing I forgot to mention, that you can see that on this project we also have environment, and this environment, to create this environment, I was inspired by Darksiders Genesis and Ruin King, by this project in which I had experience already and which style I adore. So I gathered a lot of reference of environments from Darksiders and from Ruin King, and on the base of them I created some kind of environment which is not clearly seen from the render, which is good because the main accent was on the characters. It would be very weird if they were just flying in the air. So yeah, I think this is it from me for today. Hope you like this video, and of course remember to subscribe to the channel, to like this video, and to share it on your social media. And I'm going to see you in the next video. Hope everything is great, and I hope you don't have this emotional, don't know English word for it, emotional breakdowns, and all your art is going to be based on just good emotions, not on the bad one. See you in the next video. Bye.